Not hard. Now we're playing the game and we're totally scoring. Learning how to make a virtual business boring. Showing up every morning, ready for the show. I'ma get ready. Cold engaging virtual meetings 2.0.
Hey there, I'm John Shen. I'm the CEO of GeoTeaming and the author of a little book called Engaging Virtual Meetings. You're in a class called Engaging Virtual Meetings, the surefire way to beat Zoom fatigue, right? Has anybody had Zoom fatigue? Go ahead and go to the chat and say, yeah, that happened to me. It's happened to me too. So what I want to do is I'm just going to do a little intro to me. And what you're going to get over the next 54 minutes is 6 definite tips that you can do to help your virtual meetings become more engaging. So, but just a little bit, I'd love to introduce myself and I'm going to find out a little bit more about you in just a little bit. This is my 25th year of having my own company for team building. And then of course this little thing in March happened. That's right, coronavirus, right? And what happened to me? I had 15 canceled events, right? But here's the key. I've been online for a long time. So some of you might have remembered this thing. I calculated I've been meeting online for over 35 years. In addition to that, in 2011, I wrote a book called 50 Digital Team Building Games. And so for decades, I've been trying to tell people, you know what, we could meet each other, build valuable connections, save the travel and expenses, and have dinner with your family at the end of the day. And pre-pandemic, everybody said, well, that's a great idea, John, but here's a bunch of money and I'll see you in Orlando. So anyways, I'm sitting in my office in March of 2020 with no work to do, and I'm like, what can I do? So I thought about, what can I give back to the world? And I said, well, I've been experimenting with these techniques for over 35 years about how to have a virtual, build teams virtually. And so I put this class on Eventbrite, and over 5,000 people like you clicked the button. Daniel's got it. I get face-to-face fatigue now. That's great. So anyways, 5,000 people took this class, and well, my publisher came back and said, hey, John, do you want to write your second book? And I said, well, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And I wrote this book in 1/3 of the time. It came down October 2020. By the way, this is the first time I get to announce this. Book number 8,000 just sold this week. 8,000. So if any of those of you are authors, you know that it's not as easy as it looks. You don't just happen and become a best-selling author. It takes some work. And so I spend most of my time now designing, producing, as well as speaking at, and emceeing virtual meetings. And so here's a few of them if you're fans, right? This is Jay Bonasinga, author of The Walking Dead. Patrick Lencioni, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Elizabeth Gilbert, 16 million books, and Julia Roberts played her. By the way, best keynote of the year. And she used almost no tech except a great camera and a mic. And of course, this guy, Damon John, who's from FUBU as well as from Shark Tank. So how many of you speak on virtual meetings? Go ahead and raise your hand if you speak on virtual meetings. Let's see. Oh, wait, I can do this. Let's see if I can do this crafty trick. Okay, now, how many of you speak on virtual meetings? There you go. I love Andrea's got the queen wave. There you go. So I'm going to give you my number one tip. My number one tip for people who present on virtual meetings. So here we go. Yeah, that's right. The tip is stand up. And it sounds easy, but I got to tell you, even those 4 really amazing famous people on the last screen forgot, right? 22 months into a pandemic, and we forget that actually one of the number one things that you can do while presenting, again, I know that most of you are attending, which is fine, but if you're presenting, think about this. Stand up. Right? So one is you can do this very fancy setup, or number 2 is that you can get a lifter desk, or number 3 is just get a bunch of boxes, right? Get all those boxes from all that stuff they've shipped to you, get your camera to eye level, and then stand up. And one of the great pieces of part is that if people only still see this part of you, number 1, you feel different. And number 2, people will receive you differently if you stand up. In fact, I actually saw Daniel recently at a live meeting. It was crazy. Like, I haven't done that for a couple of years. And so, but, you know, he stands up most of the time when he presents. And really, he can get that. So, you know, for those of you here, if you want to see how I'm doing this, right, this is what I've developed over the course of 24 months, right, is that, number 1, this is my reality. So this is what's happening. But this is what I see, and this is what you see, is what up here. All right, and just to go along with this is, what did I develop over the course? So this is what's in front of my face every single day. Is that I built this up over the last 2 years, and so this is how I'm able to produce meetings that most other people aren't able to produce. So there's a lot of different things here. And the funniest part about it, for an engaging virtual meeting, you almost don't need any of this stuff, right? I just thought it would be cool to geek out and do things like this, which is I buy like probably 5 or 10 minutes of engagement going, how did he just switch that screen, right? And then the more important thing are these techniques. And so in these techniques, right, I'm going to share 6 things here. And here are the 6 things that I'm going to share with you. So over the course, when I wrote this book, I was able to develop a 6-step method called Engage. And every letter stands for something. And every time that you do something on one of the letters, the odds of your virtual meeting being perceived as engaging go up. So the first one is this, the E. The E stands for engage and interact with every attendee. Now that sounds simple, right? If you want engagement, engage. But I got to tell you, a lot of people, especially a lot of people still don't do it, which is they think that you get on a virtual meeting that they need to present and fill all the air and talk for 60 minutes, right? And that's not the goal, right? The goal in my virtual meetings is to engage and interact with every attendee before the end of the meeting. And so as you saw, even before you logged in, or as you log in here on the early part, right, I was able to say hi to Andrea or Melissa or Daniel and things like that. And so it's just simple things. It can be audio and video, things like that, or it can also become, you can use chat or any of the other different tools that you have there. So that's the E, it stands for engage. Oh, check this out. So this is the best part is like every time we use a new piece of tech that we can also have technical challenges, right? Let's see if I can actually get it to work today. Okay, good. So, all right, so the next challenge is the overwhelm host. So the overwhelm host, how many of you host now your own virtual meetings? Just take a raise of hands. If you host your own virtual meeting, in other words, you're the person that scheduled the meeting and you're pushing all the buttons. Okay, so there's at least one of you inside of there. And so sometimes you probably felt like this at least once over the past 2 years, right? I feel like this is like from, what is it, The Office or Office Space? Yeah. So there's all sorts of different challenges that you can have. So one of my friends, actually, she hosts her own meeting starting on March of 2020, and here are all the different things that she needs to do. She wrote the marketing, read the registration, she set up her Zoom room, ran her own security, kept track of engaging with every person, she recorded and streamed a Facebook Live, she shared her own slide deck, she chatted with attendees while presenting, she set up and surrounded the breakout rooms, she showed the video and the chat logs after the meeting, and just unmute. What's one word that might describe how she felt?
Frantic.
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed. Anybody
Plate
else?
spinning.
Plate spinning. I love that. That's good. Anybody else? Good. Okay, good. So anyway, so that's a problem, overwhelm host. The next letter, N. The N is, says never lead a meeting alone, right? And so today, actually, I would love to see, we have a few guests. Would somebody like to help me out today? So let's go back, hang out with a few people. Anybody like to help me out today? So my actual producer is returning from the hospital, so she is not with me today. She's healing. So is there anybody here who's on or off camera who'd like to help me out today? You can just unmute, or you could also raise your hand. Or you could run away.
Usually when I'm facilitating in a class, it's the first person who I lock eyes with that gets that thing. But on a virtual meeting, that's harder.
Oh, you lock eyes with everybody at the same time. Well, Andrea, would you mind helping me out today?
Sure, I'll be happy to.
So here's the only thing that you get to do is that you're in charge of chat today.
Okay.
And so this also shows you too, if you don't have the budget, right? I actually do a whole class on one person producing, right? It is very challenging and it can be done. But the first thing you can do is get help, right? If you like doing a company meeting, pre-arrange somebody and just say, could you, assist me during this meeting, right? I like this, which is now Andrea will do something. So Andrea, do me a favor, share something that you feel comfortable sharing. So for instance, like I feel comfortable sharing my LinkedIn profile. So let's do a little networking here, right? Who said we can't network online? So that's my that's my LinkedIn link that I just put in the chat. So Andrea, if you feel open, you could share that or your website or something about you. And then the others can follow along. So so today I'm gonna have, Andrea is gonna be my guest producer. She didn't know that. And that's one of the ways to do that is to really to solve the engagement part. I can tell you that even I've been meeting online for over 35 years, I still get caught on mute, right? So number one is it's not your fault. And number two is get help. Right? It's because even for the best presenters, it's challenging. And if you are not, adept and practiced in this environment, it's even more challenging. So do yourself a favor, get a producer so that now Andrea can focus on the chat, and that means I can focus on you. So that's really one of the keys. Never lead a meeting alone. Thank you for that. Let's go on to the next one. There we go. Okay, so the other problem that we've probably seen is some of these. Some bad backgrounds, perhaps. So you may have seen, I'm too close to the screen. Whoa, right? My internet froze. Yeah, common. I have too much headspace. Then I actually have to admit, everybody today is great. And then I don't know how, my good friend, I don't know how to use a green screen. So the real key here is that the G in engage stands for this. It stands for good looks. So in G here in good looks, oh, wow. I have a new camera, by the way. I've been working on this camera. So here in good looks is that we want to look for things here. I have a quote and a statistic, right? The statistic is 60 to 65% of all of our language is body language, right? So there's different varying numbers for it. But the key here is that's why I ask people to have cameras on, because even if you're in the audience, all right, my setup right now has you in gallery, so I can see things like Melissa's definitely looking contemplative right now. And those are the things that I want to be able to see as a presenter that a lot of presenters said they missed, right? They feel like they're talking to a blank wall or empty camera. So that's really key, and the second one is this opportunity that I think a lot of people miss. And that's the background of our video conferences is key to the image we present of ourselves. Here, I'll say it again. The background of our video conferences is key to the image that we present of ourselves. Here, look, I put some awards, right? I wrote a book. I might know what I'm doing, right? This is a photo. And so this is a photo of me skydiving, tandem skydiving. So some of you don't know me. So somebody unmute, and if you just saw that, or if you just recognize that this is a photo of me skydiving, what's something that you might be able to surmise about me? Feel free to unmute.
You're adventurous.
There we go. Thank you. And Stephanie, are you adventurous at all too, or not?
Me? No.
Yeah. Well, I see this, but I love this. Again, you got this here in the background.
I got this on the ground, not in the sky. Jumping skydiving.
What does that mean? Okay, let me guess. You see, you got this kind of means that I would surmise about you. You have some positivity about you.
Yes.
Yeah, and so why did you put that in your background, if you don't mind me asking?
I like to share positive things with my team. So when I'm doing a huddle or a meeting with them, I like for them to see that in the background, so it reminds them that they got this too.
And now Daniel's immediately interested, because if you haven't figured out, he's with a company called Wild Leaders, and he just now sees your leadership coming through, which is a great piece. So thank you for that, Stephanie. Okay, good. So this is how well backgrounds can really mean something. They can actually mean some economic success. And so, okay, let's see if I can do this today. If my camera is going to work now. All right, great. So one of my friends was interviewing for a job, and he looked on LinkedIn, and he went to the interviewer and said, found that she was a Lakers fan, right? So he changed his background to this. This is Staples Center, right? And so as soon as she logged in, he was logged in for the meeting, the interviewer logged in. She took one look at the screen, and then she said, "You got me." Right? And so they got to talk about the Lakers for 5 minutes. So it was a great piece for him to connect with, his interviewer. And he said that she started to warm up a little bit more. And so, and the good news at the end of the story is that he ended up getting the job. So this is how your backgrounds can really be working for you at any moment, at any time. It's always saying something, even though it's not using any of the airtime at all. All right, the next problem, of course, is people talking over each other. So while Zoom doesn't have the technology yet where we can all talk at the same time and be understood, you really need to look at this and figure out how to solve this if you want an engaging meeting. And so the A in engage stands for air traffic control. So this is 5,000 flights in the United States of America, and they don't crash into each other. Why? Because we have air traffic control. And I think your audio channel on your virtual meeting is exactly the same way. Like if you have a culture of people talking over each other and you're the host, what I have to say, unfortunately, is it's kind of your fault, right? And so as the host of the meeting, you get to set the culture and the standards of the meeting. And one of them is just for the sake of being engaging, right? Not being frustrating, is just to run a little air traffic control so that everyone could be heard. You know, the funny part about, people are talking about Zoom fatigue and all these other things. What you really discover if you get to the core of it, it's not Zoom fatigue. People have been having bad meeting fatigue, right? Badly, poorly designed meetings are really the source of Zoom fatigue, and Zoom only makes it worse, right? And Zoom is just, it's not Zoom's fault, technically, it's how people are running their meetings. And so that's what I hope to do, again, share some of these secrets. The next one here is problems, working online has been a challenge. If you hadn't done this, again, I had 7 PhDs here in Seattle. They needed to meet for an hour and make a critical decision for their students, and they couldn't. And the reason why is, one is that they don't have the practices to do it, and the second one is they had never practiced. So working online is slightly different, and you really need to learn how to do that. So the G in Engage stands for get productive with virtual tools. What's exciting to me is that we are actually in month 24 or so of pandemic, and what this means is that people now know how to get online, right? They know how to turn their cameras on. Now you get on to the next challenge, which is how do you really engage people, and people are looking for more, and one of the ways to do that is use all the tools inside your virtual meeting platform, and there is a huge plethora of tools outside of that platform. You need to pick the right tool, right? Get the right tool for the right job, right? For the right audience. And what I mean by that is don't give a brand new team just getting on Zoom an advanced tool. What you can do is work your way up to it so that they feel success for it. There was a group that did breakout rooms when they first came out, and they didn't go well, and then they stopped using them. Right? The breakout rooms are the third most powerful tool inside of, I think, in terms of engagement on a virtual meeting. And they threw the baby out with the bathwater because it didn't really run right. So what you want to do is give your groups positive experiences to gain that momentum. The last one here is Zoom fatigue. Okay, so I think I asked about Zoom fatigue. Do me a favor, go in the chat, and maybe Andrea can read off a few of them when I ask you. What's the maximum number of hours that you've ever been online in a single day? What's the maximum number of hours? So while you chat a number, right, I will tell you the story, which is one time, by the way, my new number is 24. I actually ran a 25.5-hour Zoom meeting. By the way, that's possible, trying to help break a record for a friend. The second part is early on in the pandemic, I had a 2-hour meeting on a different platform. It was really intense, and what happened was after the meeting, I got up, I went to my bedroom, and I did this. I just completely passed out. And so when I woke up the next morning, right, I asked 2 questions. Number 1 is, what truck hit me? And number 2 is, why did that just happen, right? And so in that, I did a lot of research. I've been meeting people and so forth and other things. And there are 3 key things. Number 1 is you don't have the muscle for it, which is if you had not been meeting online and then March of 2020 you got thrown online, right, you don't have the muscle for it. It's like if you didn't work out and you tried to do CrossFit, it's going to hurt. Right. The second one is this, is that, you have the most important point, right? It's amazing presentation, and then, which you should know is like, I'm messing with you too. And number 2 is, right, when you have technical problems, you have to expend a whole lot of energy to understand what's going on. And then the third one is, well, Andrea?
Yes.
I'm going to share with you. Okay, she's already passing out. So yeah, if you're not engaging, if you're the presenter and you're not engaging, that's the other thing I think that leads to Zoom fatigue. Andrea, what are some of our numbers that are in the chat?
So we've got anywhere between 7 hours to 14 to your 24 plus hours, but I think the average is roughly about 10-ish as in terms of the longest time.
Aha, excellent, 10. Thank you so much. And I'll come back to that in just a second. All right, great. So thank you for that. What is the other piece that I have here? Okay, great. So problem with Zoom fatigue, thank you so much. So the last one, the last E in Engage is end on a high note. So the E in Engage stands for end on a high note. And so what you do with that, again, is this came from product market research. And in product market research, it said that in a 60-minute demo, if you could architect a 5-minute high note at the end of it, people were more likely to buy. So what I love to say is now your virtual meeting is exactly the same way. So if you can architect a high note somehow, and that could be like a reflection, play a video, right, do something together, some kind of high note together on a meeting, people are more likely to come back to your virtual meeting, be excited about it, be engaged with it, and move along with it. So there you go. That's E, end on a high note. So meanwhile with that, we're going to come in and meet some people. We're going to introduce yourself. So I'm going to have yourself introduce yourself. You're going to raise your physical hand or your virtual hand. And then what I want you to do is share your name, location, and one virtual meeting challenge that you have. And we'll get a chance to meet everybody who's in the class. So let's come back here. And we're going to head back to the group. There we go. Who would like to go first? If you're ready, yeah, there we go. Oh, great. Thank you so much, Stephanie.